Hello everybody, I am Evelil and I will tell you one story of a good viewing. It started with a text message. Simple enough, right? I'm sure you've had your fair share of random numbers sending cryptic messages, pranksters, scammers, or maybe just someone who dialed the wrong number. But this one was different. It was just after midnight when my phone buzzed on the nightstand. The screen lit up, displaying a number I didn't recognize. I was half asleep, groggy from the long hours I'd spent in front of my computer screen, but I reached for my phone anyway. I wasn't expecting anything important, so I almost ignored it. The message read, "You'll want to check your locks." I frowned, puzzled. Was it some sort of prank? But the message seemed too urgent, too specific. I looked around my apartment, the walls pressing in as if the message had somehow made the room feel smaller. My heart rate quickened and I shot a glance toward the front door. It was locked, but I stood up anyway, walked over, and double-checked. There was no one there. No sign of anything unusual. No footprints in the hall outside. I felt ridiculous for being spooked, but the nagging feeling in my gut didn't go away. I crawled back into bed, hoping that the creepiness would fade, but just as I started to drift off, my phone buzzed again. The new message was even worse. "You didn't check the windows." My stomach dropped. Now, this wasn't just a random text. This felt like someone was watching me. I hesitated before getting up again, my pulse thudding in my ears. I walked over to the windows and checked them one by one. Locked as they should be. But I didn't feel any better. There was something wrong. Something in the air felt thick, like I was being suffocated. And then my phone buzzed again. "You're not alone." My heart stopped. I froze, staring at the screen as if it could offer me answers. The message didn't make sense. There was no one in my apartment. But the unease only grew, crawling through my veins like ice water. I checked the hallway again, but it was still empty. I turned off my phone, hoping that would stop the messages. Maybe it was just some sick joke and I was letting it get to me. But sleep wouldn't come. A few hours later, when the first light of dawn crept through the blinds, I couldn't take it anymore. I unlocked my phone, opened the message thread, and stared at the chilling words again. But the text was gone. The entire thread vanished. In its place was a single new message from the same number. "You're already dead." My stomach flipped. I stumbled back, almost dropping my phone. I scrolled through my messages, refreshing, swiping, but the entire conversation had disappeared, replaced with that one horrifying line. I tried to dismiss it as some kind of glitch. Maybe a prank, I told myself. But I couldn't shake the feeling that something had changed. The air felt heavier now, like the world around me was on the brink of shifting in ways I couldn't understand. The next day, I received another message, and it felt like my heart was about to burst. This time, it was even worse. "You don't have much time left. Do what they told you." That they didn't make sense. I had no idea who they were. But I felt a gnawing sensation in my gut, an urge to do something, though I couldn't put my finger on what. Something inside me screamed that I needed to listen, but to what? Who was this person, and how did they know so much about me? I spent the entire day trying to ignore the growing dread that gnawed at my mind. I went to work, tried to focus on the tasks at hand, but the message kept playing in my mind over and over again. Do what they told you. What had I missed? At lunch, I checked my phone again. There was a new message. "Don't trust your friends." I nearly dropped the sandwich I was holding. My hands shook uncontrollably and my mind raced. Was I being paranoid? I didn't even want to think about who could be behind this. What kind of sick person would torment someone like this? But there was no denying the increasing feeling that something was terribly wrong. The messages were escalating, becoming more urgent, more personal. It was as if I was being pulled into a nightmare that I couldn't escape. By evening, I was too terrified to be alone. I called my best friend, Karen, and asked if I could come over. I needed to get out of my apartment. I needed to feel like I wasn't being watched. She agreed without hesitation, and I was at her door in under an hour. As I stepped inside, the familiar, comforting smell of her home did little to calm my nerves. We sat on the couch, talking about random things, but I couldn't shake the sense of impending doom hanging over me. I checked my phone once more. It was almost as if I was drawn to it, compelled to see if another message had come through. My screen lit up with a new notification. "They're already here." I felt a cold sweat break out on my skin. The message was accompanied by a photo. A photo of my apartment taken from the street below. It was an image of the exact view from my living room window, showing the light in my room dimming as the evening wore on. I could feel my pulse pounding in my throat, the room closing in around me. I showed Karen the message. Her eyes widened and she grabbed my phone, swiping through the pictures. Her voice shook as she asked, "What the hell is going on?" I didn't have an answer. I was out of my mind with fear. I could feel something or someone was drawing closer, getting closer by the second. Suddenly, the lights flickered, and for just a moment I thought I saw something standing in the corner of the room. My heart stopped. But when I turned, there was nothing there. "Karen," I whispered. What if we're being watched right now?" I could barely get the words out. My mouth had gone dry, my breath shallow. Karen laughed nervously, trying to defuse the tension, but I could tell she wasn't as calm as she appeared. She glanced around the room, then checked her phone, her face pale. There was a message on her screen. "She can't save you." Karen's eyes met mine, and for the first time I saw real fear in her gaze. She turned to the window, then back to me. "We need to leave. Now." I didn't ask any more questions. We bolted out of her apartment without looking back. As we reached the street, I could see that the city felt different. The streetlights hummed strangely, casting an eerie glow over the quiet night. The streets, usually bustling, felt empty, desolate. I was about to ask Karen where we should go when my phone buzzed again. The new message was waiting for me. It wasn't from the same number. "You've already sealed your fate." Before I could react, my phone died. The screen went black, and despite every attempt to turn it back on, it remained lifeless. "Something's wrong," I whispered, my voice barely audible. This is bigger than just a prank." Karen's eyes flickered nervously as she looked around. We were standing on a dark street corner, alone. And then, in the distance, I heard it. The sound of footsteps. Heavy, deliberate, approaching us. It was like the world had fallen silent except for that sound. And as I looked over at Karen, her face drained of color, I realized whatever was happening, whatever was sending those messages, was already here. The footsteps drew closer, and my breath caught in my throat. I turned toward Karen, my eyes wide with panic, but her gaze was fixed on something in the distance. She didn't need to say it, her expression told me everything. Something was coming. Something we couldn't see yet, but we could feel it closing in on us like a suffocating fog. I grabbed her arm, pulling her away from the street corner. "We need to move. Now." We broke into a run, darting down the empty sidewalk, but my mind raced faster than my legs could carry me. Why were we being hunted? Why did these messages keep escalating, becoming more threatening by the minute? Who was sending them, and how did they know so much about us? As we turned down another alleyway, the noise of our footsteps seemed to echo unnaturally in the quiet night. It was as if the air itself was waiting for something to happen. I could feel a presence, something watching us, just beyond the edge of my vision, but whenever I turned to look, there was nothing there. Suddenly, Karen stopped. Her eyes widened in terror as she stared at something in front of her. I followed her gaze, but all I saw was an old streetlight, flickering weakly. A shape moved under the flickering light, too quick for me to register at first, but then I saw it clearly, a tall, hunched figure, standing motionless at the far end of the alley. My pulse raced. The figure didn't move. It didn't speak. But it was there. "Karen," I whispered, but she didn't respond. She was too focused on the figure, her breathing shallow and quick. The sound of the footsteps from earlier had stopped, replaced by the unnerving silence. And then, as if the figure had been waiting for some unseen signal, it moved. Slowly, deliberately. It didn't walk or run, but glided toward us, its dark, elongated limbs dragging on the ground. Its face was obscured by the shadows, but there was something unmistakably wrong about its form. "Run!" I screamed. "Karen, we need to run." But Karen didn't move. Her eyes were locked on the figure, and I could see the terror in her gaze. She wasn't frozen from fear, no, she was looking at something that I couldn't see, something that was beyond her, beyond the figure. "Karen." I grabbed her arm, pulling her away, but her eyes remained fixed on the approaching shape. And then, out of nowhere, my phone buzzed in my pocket. The noise shattered the tension, but when I pulled it out, the screen was still black. I tried turning it on, but it was as if the battery had been completely drained. "Why aren't you listening?" Karen's voice cracked as she whispered, her eyes still wide in terror. I can hear it now. It's here. It's always been here." My blood ran cold as the words left her mouth. It was like something was speaking through her, or to her, but I couldn't tell what. I grabbed her shoulders, shaking her. "What are you talking about? Who is here?" Before she could answer, the figure in the distance took another step, and this time it moved faster. The shadows beneath it seemed to ripple, and I felt an overwhelming sense of wrongness. My skin crawled. It spoke. Or rather, it sent a message, not in words but in a wave of unrelenting fear. It poured into my mind, an overwhelming sensation of dread and something far worse, something inhuman. And then the message appeared on the screen of my phone, even though it was still off. I could see the words clearly, as if they were burned into my vision. "The future is already decided. You are not meant to be here." I staggered back, the words ringing in my ears, but before I could process what they meant, I felt a cold gust of wind wash over me. I turned to look behind us. The streetlights were flickering in time with my panic. The world around me was unraveling. Colors seemed to bleed out of the buildings and the ground beneath our feet felt wrong, like we were standing on something unstable, something that didn't belong in this world. "We have to go," I said again, my voice desperate as I pulled Karen into motion. "We have to leave now. This place isn't real." But Karen remained motionless. Her eyes were vacant, her body trembling. "I've seen this before," she whispered, her voice distant. "I've seen everything. The messages, the figure, it was always going to end like this." I felt a chill that went deeper than just the cold of the night. I tried to shake her out of it, but it was as if she wasn't even there. It was like she had already stepped into another dimension, one that I couldn't follow. The fear was suffocating. It was as though she was being drawn away from me by some invisible force. Suddenly, the figure lunged forward. It was impossibly fast, its long limbs stretching in ways that shouldn't have been possible. The air around it seemed to warp, distorting the world like an old film reel playing in reverse. It wasn't just a figure now, it was a presence. An entity from another time, another place, and it had been waiting for us. I shoved Karen away, pulling her to the ground with me as the figure reached for us. Its fingers were like tendrils, slick with something that didn't belong. Its face, if you could even call it that, was nothing more than a void, an absence of anything human. And then, as if it were all part of some terrible script, the air around us cracked. The world split. It wasn't just the street that vanished, it was everything. The sounds, the lights, the air itself seemed to bend and collapse into something else entirely. There was a flash of light, a blinding, all-consuming light, and then I was somewhere else. We were somewhere else. The buildings were gone. The night was gone. There was nothing. Just a void. I could still feel Karen beside me, but when I turned to look at her, her face was different. It wasn't the Karen I knew. Her eyes were vacant, her skin pale, and she was staring ahead with a terrifying emptiness. "Karen?" I whispered, my voice shaking. But she didn't answer. She couldn't. The words that came next weren't hers. "The future has already happened. There's no escape. You never were meant to know." I stumbled backward, panic rising in my chest. This wasn't real. It couldn't be. And then I understood. The messages weren't warnings. They were predictions. Every step we had taken, every moment we had spent trying to outrun the terror, had been part of a future already sealed. This was how it was always meant to end. We were never supposed to escape. The figure, the entity, appeared again in front of me, but now it wasn't just a shadow. It was a presence that filled the space around me, too vast, too strange to comprehend. It was from the future, and it was waiting for me, waiting for all of us. And I realized, in the depth of that terrible void, that there would be no way out. There never had been. Thank you very much and see you all in the next video. Love you guys.